Hey everyone, and welcome back to Small Engine Edge. Today we're going to go over all things push mower and handheld equipment that you need to start stocking in order to efficiently and quickly fix these things. Whether you are fixing things for a customer or whether you're selling things, you want to have some of these parts and supplies in stock so you can move through them quickly so you're not waiting on parts. I'm going to go over what those essentials are and keep you from spending a ton of money on those things, but yet still get things out the door very fast. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button as we go along if you enjoy the content. First things first on all of these spark plugs, right? When you start doing these, you're going to see a lot of Honda engines. You're going to see a lot of the Chinese clone engines. NGK BPR 5ES is going to be the one that's going to be used probably the most on those engines, especially push mowers and stuff like that. Once you get into more of the snow blowers and stuff, you may need the BPR 5 or BPR 6ES. Honestly, you could use a 5 in place of a 6 and you wouldn't be hurting anything, but some of them do call for the 6 instead. Those plugs are probably the most common amongst all those Chinese engines and amongst everything new coming out. Now, other than that, the two very important ones you need, we use a 491055T. This is the Briggs & Stratton branded plug, but it is the same as what a Champion RC12YC always was. And that's what many people still know them as, is that same number that was used years and years ago. Briggs & Stratton doesn't actually make these plugs, but they do put their little symbol on them. The only reason we use those, in addition to the 796112, is because these are $1 or less a piece, and we can buy them 100 at a time for that price. Very good deal, and we use them kind of as a filler to get our parts up to the threshold, up to the $250 threshold to get free shipping with our suppliers. So it works out great. Now this one is the 796112, and that's going to replace your RJ19LM, is what the Champion number always was and still is today. You can use those Champion plugs. I had a situation years and years ago where I had a bad batch of Champion plugs, and ever since I have not used them. There were 6 or 8 of them in this batch that went bad. I'd go back out, and the only issue was the spark plug. It drove me insane dealing with that. So I've never went back. I don't know how common that is with those plugs. I've never really heard of any issues like that, but after I saw that, I've used these Briggs & Stratton plugs ever since, and they've been great. I've never had an issue with one of them. Those are the most common spark plugs on all of your small engine stuff with your 4 cycles. With just those 4 plugs, stocking them, that covers probably 85 to 90% of everything, at least that we work on here, with just those couple plugs. A few more of the ones for push mowers that we see quite a bit. The DCPR6E. We see this one in replacement for a lot of the Kohler ones. The Kohler ones are extremely pricey if you get a name brand Kohler, and Kohler doesn't make plugs, so it's probably NGK making it for them. And then we've got the BR6HS for those Toro branded Lonson engines and Exmark branded Lonson engines. And then the BPR6HS, kind of the same thing. Knockoff Honda clones or the Toro branded engines. When you go into smaller stuff, when you start working on all your handhelds, we do use a couple Champion plugs for those since they're not at least readily available with NGK. I'm not sure that they make them from NGK. The DJ7Y. We use that one quite a bit. We also use the RDZ19H. And then there's a few other NGK plugs. The BPM R7A, that's one that is going to be probably most common in a lot of your smaller handheld stuff. We've got tons of other ones besides this. We probably stock over 100 plugs. These are just some of the most common ones. BPM8Y, a lot of the Echo stuff's going to take that. That other one, the BPM R7A, that's going to be a lot of your steel stuff. And then we've got a CMR 6H. We also stock the CMR 4H. We also stock BMR 7As. We stock a lot of different things, but these are going to be your most common ones that at least we see around here. It is going to depend on your area too. Sometimes different areas are going to have different pieces of equipment and different things that they see more commonly depending on what's sold in the area. So what we usually start off, or what we started off doing anyway, is once we see a plug or something we have to order once, that's fine. Don't order additional, but once you're ordering it the second time, within a couple weeks, order some extras, at least another extra, so you have one sitting on the shelf. That way you don't have a ton that you're not using. But if you're using these plugs multiple times every day or week, obviously order an additional 6, 8, 10 of them. That way you're not waiting on them and you can order them ahead of time. It makes things a lot more streamlined, so you're not waiting on a spark plug for somebody, okay? The air filters, let's get into air filters real quick. 593260 Briggs & Stratton air filters. These are probably the most common air filter out there because of those newer plastic style Briggs & Stratton engines. We do only use OEM on these. The aftermarkets just didn't seem to fit well, and we try to stay OEM with everything that we do. That's one of the most common, behind the 491588S. Most of you will recognize this as a blue filter. It used to be. This is an OEM new black filter. They quit making them with that blue here this year when we ordered our stock, but it's the same filter. We do still use the Briggs & Stratton brand, even though honestly the quality of these seems to be a lot less than what it was with the blue filter. This was the most common filter for a very long time, but these engines are starting to get old, so we're seeing less and less of them in for service. We've got 336 is what we order them in bundles of. I've got almost all 336 of those left, and we're mostly through the very busy season starting off this year anyway. These are exactly the same filters as the Honda filters, and you do not have to use a Honda branded filter. They're the same size, same thickness, same quality as what those are. These we use for all Honda engines also, as opposed to using an OEM Honda. The next two are going to be Kohler filters. I do not use OEMs for these because the aftermarket filters are exactly the same quality when I looked at them. The OEMs I get are extremely expensive, and the quality honestly seems lacking versus the aftermarkets that we get. These are 14083, 15-S, and 1408301-S. Kohler filters are very common. Then we have a couple more that we see on many of the Briggs & Stratton engines. These are the rectangular ones, one with a hole and one without a hole. They also make a couple different foam variations of filters. We don't see those nearly as often anymore. We used to see those quite a bit. It's 595297 for the one without the hole and 799579 for the one with the hole. Then we've got the 795066s. On your Briggs & Stratton commercial engines, these are what's used pretty well exclusively. There are a couple different designs of both foam filters, and a lot of the newer ones have a cartridge filter just so you have to stock something else. When it comes to handheld pieces of equipment, I do not stock hardly anything. We've got maybe 15 or 20 back there, but I would say things differ quite a bit, especially depending on the area that you're in. So figure out exactly what you're using and stock those from there. Don't try to stock them based off what I have here because we're kind of all over the place as far as those filters go. If you're just going to stock a few of those filters, I would say first off for Echo, the A22 600 1410. That's good for many of the blowers and trimmers for your Echo brand, and it fits a lot of the different models. On the steel side of things, if you're working on a bunch of steel, the 4180 120 1800 is a good one to stock. On these, we used to never use aftermarkets, and then the OEM got extremely pricey. You've got to pick the aftermarkets right because some of this stuff is way too fine and it'll actually bog your blower or your trimmer down. Use either OEM or be very picky about where you're getting those filters from. HIPAA does a great job with most of theirs. Some of them are still kind of really fine and don't work well. Another one's going to be the 4229 120 1800. This is one of the ones that they use on many of the lower end blowers. And we have a lot of them for the higher end blowers and cutoff saws and trimmers and stuff, but we don't use them very often. Pull cord. We stock Briggs & Stratton number 4.5. You're always going to need pull cord. This is Briggs & Stratton brand. We also stock some rotary brand stuff or some lighter ones. This is number 4.5. The rotary is number 3.5 here. That one is just a little bit smaller for like your handheld stuff. And this is pretty much good for all of your 4-cycle pieces of equipment. So you shouldn't really need a whole lot of different pull cord besides that. When it comes to fuel line, we have these fuel lines that are Oregon. They're Tygon branded. You should be able to see the part numbers there. If not, I'll put them up there for you. We only stock those 2 sizes as far as the 2-cycle stuff goes. And then we stock standard 1/4-inch fuel line for everything else. We'll get just a roll of the 1/4-inch fuel line. This is Continental brand. We also stock a 1/4-inch and we stock a 3/8-inch fuel line also for different styles. But normally you're just going to use this 1/4-inch or these 2 Tygon fractional or metric sizes. You're really not going to use a whole lot of other fuel line other than that. When it comes to oil and stocking that, I would stock 2 weights, 5W30 for your snow blowers and stuff that's going to be operated in the winter, and 10W30 for everything else. Whether you want to go to Farm and Fleet and get some synthetic or some regular 5W30, or you want to do better and go start selling AMSOIL. Whichever direction you want to go, those 2 weights are going to be the most important. We do stock a lot of others now. We stock Hydro Gears oil for the transmissions, and we stock synthetic and base oil. We get 55 gallon barrels of both 5W and 10W30, but if somebody wants full synthetic or Mobil 1 or whatever else, we'll source that for them without an issue, because there's no problem getting that from the auto parts store. They'll come deliver it to us if we need something like that, and it's here in a very short time. You can lean on those people for some of your parts and supplies if you're not stocking some of these spark plugs and things. They will be a little bit more expensive, though, than sourcing them elsewhere. We try not to source much from them, but you will get a pretty good discount if you sign up for a business account, and you will get free delivery. At least that's how that works in my area. That's why we don't stock a whole lot of that, but some of your larger pieces of equipment and transaxles will need like a 20W50 Mobil 1 or different weights, but the 5W and 10W30 are going to be the ones that you're going to use most often. Of course, you're going to need 2-cycle oil if you're working on handheld equipment and you're mixing it up yourself. Aspen's great, but it is kind of pricey, or another premix fuel if you are happy with another brand better than that. But otherwise, get you some, we like full synthetic, 2-cycle oil, mix you up a couple gallons at a time or a gallon at a time, depending on how you're using it, and that'll work great for you. If you get the multi-mix, the full synthetic, you can use that on both 40-to-1 and 50-to-1 pieces of equipment. It's basically mixed at a 40-to-1 ratio, but it's good for 50-to-1 because it actually uses less oil if you're using the synthetic. Great to not have to mix up multiple cans for working on different pieces of equipment with different mix ratios. When it comes to blades, again, it really depends on what kind of pieces of equipment they have in your area. We started off with just 4 blades as far as stocking. The 942-0741, we use the rotary version, the 6423. Whether you want to use an aftermarket or an OEM, it doesn't much so matter. They're pretty well the same blade. We stock both. This is an OEM 942-05019, so that's the 22-inch version. And that actually, I think, is the 23-inch version that we have back there. It is. But looking at them, you're barely going to notice any sort of difference. The quality and everything's the same. And honestly, some of this stuff, I feel like rotary makes for a lot of the OEMs anyway. Stock whichever one you want. There's a 942-074. I believe the other one's 0742 maybe for the 22-inch. That's the one that I meant to grab here as opposed to this one. I'll put that number up top. These are basically for all MTD branded mowers, and you'll see those just a lot. This 21-inch blade is pretty well on everything. Craftsman, Cub Cadet, any of your MTDs, your Troy Belts. everything out there. Then we stock the 21 and 22 inch blade of the Toro. These are pretty much the four we started out with. Now I've got probably 20 or 30 push mower blades back there that we stock, but most of them we don't use much. I would say this is probably at least a good 65–70% of everything we use each year, with this probably accounting for about a quarter of it. When it comes to filters, the 07-101 is pretty much what you're going to use on any of your small 4-cycles. There's not a whole lot else out there that you need to use. When it comes to 2-stroke, you can stock all kinds of filters. The Echoes usually take something like this, a little piece of plastic. All of your MTD, Troy-Bilt stuff takes something like this. And then there's steel, different filters. We don't stock a whole lot of that. We really don't. You buy them as you need them. Fuel filters many times are not going to be something that's going to have to be replaced, but it just depends. We do stock quite a few of them, but they're kind of all over the place as far as when you need them. Primer bulbs. These are for MTD, Troy-Bilt, snow blowers, and different things. And then you've got ones for your 2-cycle stuff. Ones like this that attach with a couple screws. And then you've also got the ones that clip in that are just like this. I will put those part numbers up above for you. Those are probably the most common that I see here anyway. But again, this is all going to depend on exactly which area you're in. Hopefully this helped you out if you're wondering what you should stock starting out with your small engine repair business. This was a customer request. I figured it'd be kind of an easy video, and it ended up being quite a bit more difficult than what I thought it'd be because there is quite a bit to cover. There's quite a bit of different things you can stock depending on exactly which area you're in. Primer bulbs and fuel filters and blades, and when it comes to riding mowers and larger pieces of equipment, it's even so much bigger. I will go over that here sometime in the near future as far as what I think you should stock or what we stock as far as those go. But hopefully this has helped you out a little bit at least on the 4-cycle and 2-cycle pieces of equipment that you're doing. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy the content.